Okay, let's start reproduction. Let's talk sex. Reproduction. This is repro1. We'll do this chapter, and this is the next to last chapter. We're going to do a little bit on section 29 development, just a little bit. We're going to cover this whole chapter. First, we're going to talk about general aspects of sex, what it means, what is its importance, subject mechanisms like meiosis, and then we're going to get into male-female anatomy, male-female reproductive physiology. The book puts females and the males. I made this PowerPoint from an older book, the males when I speak first, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. So first of all, we got to talk about what is gender. And that's a good question, but it really isn't. It's mating types. We're obligate sexual organisms, and we have two genders, obviously male and female. But what are the definitions of those things? Might be like a stupid question, but what is a male? What is a female? How come there are only two of them, two genders? Some organisms actually have lots of genders. The animals only have two. Sometimes they only have one if they're asexual. But what is a gender? It's a mating type. And how do you define male and female? Well, is it the outside appearance, the sexual organs? So males have penises and females have vaginas. No, that's not it, because that's not true across all animals. Remember, can you have plants that are animals? Can you have plants that have gender? Yes, they can be male and female. Plants. So obviously it's not organs that define male and female. Could it be we have something called genetic gender determination. That is a set of chromosomes. One of our 23 pairs of chromosomes are the sex chromosomes. And it's two types, X and Y. And if you're female, you have two X's, your males have X and Y. So males are the ones with the two X's, right? And females are the ones with X and Y. Well, that's true in humans and fruit flies and a lot of other animals, but not true for all animals across the board. Or for plants that exhibit gender. There's a bunch of different ways you can determine gender. Genetic is just one of them. And what it is are the third line down, the gametes. What kind of sex cells do you make? There are two, type of organism. There are two types of gametes. These are haploid cells. They only have half the number of chromosomes. They made a special process called meiosis in gonads, ovaries and testes. And one of them is large and immobile and has all of the organelles that a cell has. The other one is small and mobile. It doesn't have all the organelles that a cell has. The big immobile one is called an oocyte or an egg. The small one is called a spermatocyte or a sperm. And males make sperm, the small mobile one, and females make the large immobile one. And that's true across the board. Every animal, that's how you define male and female for any animal and plants. Like plant pollen, it's plant sperm. That's what it is. Okay, so that's how you define male and female. And then we can also talk about different types of gender. Well, I'll get that into the next slide. So the cells that make these gametes are called oogonium oogonia and spermatogonia. And they are in gonads. They are in ovaries in females and testes in males. They are diploid cells. Important to realize that they have 46 chromosomes. They're going to go through a two-stage reduction division process called meiosis. We're going to divide the chromosomes in half and have 23 chromosomes in each gamete rather than 46. So they're called haploid cells. And the gamete, so the cells that make oocytes are called oogonia. The cells that make spermatocytes are called spermatogonia. Now, once these gametes get together and unite in a process of fertilization, now that cell is called a zygote, and that's a diploid cell. So we get the egg and sperm coming together, joining to form a zygote. Right. Benefit of sex. We don't know. Well, we got some pretty good hypotheses. It seems almost crazy that sex seems to be so important, so prevalent. But you don't need sex to make babies. You get some organisms make babies without sex. It's called asexual babies. Oh, but before I go on, there are other organisms that make gametes, like some fungi, like some protistans, but there's no such thing as a male-female fungus because their genders are not male and female. They don't make sperm or eggs. Their gametes are really different than ours. Okay. But let's get back to the benefit of sex. It's so prevalent. There are very few organisms that don't use sex. And so sex is by far the more popular means of reproduction, even though there are crippling deficits to sex. Let's talk about a couple of deficits of sex. There are organisms like these, well, dandelions, for one of them. One of the reasons dandelions are so successful, they don't use sex. And there are these lizards out in the American Southwest giving up on sex. Giving up on it because their ancestors had sexual needs. They gave up on it. And this is called parthenogenesis. They've done away with males. They don't have males, just females. And every female lays a diploid egg. And those offspring are clones of each other and clones of their mother. So this is the whole purpose of using sex, is to make genetically different offspring that are genetically different from each other and genetically different from mom and dad. Why? Why is that so important? Because asexual organs should have been taken over the earth because they can make so many more offspring than sexually reproducing species. Because in sexually reproducing species, only one of the genders gives birth. Females give birth, males don't. They just supply sperm. But in parthenogenic organisms, everybody lays eggs. Everybody makes babies. So that's a huge, make babies much more rapid, much more than sexually reproducing ones. So why would they take it over? They don't have to go out and find sexual partner, which is for a lot of organs a very, very dangerous thing to do. They don't need to do that. They don't screw up genetic combinations in most organs, not humans, but in most organisms. It's a real struggle for life. Very, very few of the organisms that are born into wild animals live long enough to actually reproduce and make babies of their own. So that means they gotta have a really good combination, genetic combination, to live through all kinds of dangers, right? So why do you want to screw that up? Why do you want to scramble chromosomes and scramble genetic combinations? Um, you know, so here's the thought. There are a couple of hypotheses of why sex is so important. One of them has to do with fixing repairs in genes, and also getting together novel mutations that are like helpful errors. And if a pathogenic organism gets one, they can pass it on to their offspring, but they can't pass it on to other organisms. With sexually producing organisms, the two individuals have a really good mutations here. We can put them together into the same individual. You can't do that in asexual. But the best hypothesis for why sex is so prevalent and so important has to do with actually this pandemic that we're in. It's pathogens. It's how to keep ahead of our pathogens, both living pathogens, bacteria, and viruses. Here's the thing. Bacteria generally use bacteria because they're organisms that are easy to understand than viruses. Bacteria generally use asexual means of reproduction. So you wouldn't think that they would change very fast. And they don't. You know, asexual reproducing organisms change because of mutations, you know, errors in copying genes. So you slowly get change, right? But the problem is bacteria will change much more rapidly than we do, even though they use asexual means because their generation time is so short. So they change very little from generation to generation. But how long is the generation? 20 minutes. You know, if you give bacteria a good amount of food and everything, they'll reproduce every 20 minutes. And so, what's our generation time? About 12 years. I mean, you have to reach puberty before you can make babies, right? Usually it takes about 12 years. So how many times have bacteria reproduced in those 12 years if they can reproduce every 20 minutes? It's huge. So they change very rapidly because there's small generation time. So if we didn't change more rapidly, they'd catch up to us. They would find a key to unlock our immune system. So our immune system is like a lock that helps prevent and keep bacteria at bay. But they're always changing, trying to find a way through that lock, you know. And same with viruses. And here's and the two pandemics are examples. Back in 1918, there was happened to be a flu strain that had a really good key and unlocked a lot of people's immune systems. And the coronavirus is doing the same thing. It hits you, and they have a really mild case, or you could be killed because of this combination. You got a really good key. It can really knock down the immune system. Okay, so in order to change as fast as our pathogens do, we have to use sex because of our very long generation. And even if you are a simpler animal, have much shorter generation time, it's still long compared to bacteria. So this is called the Red Queen hypothesis. It's based on Alice in Wonderland. Alice found the Red Queen, she was running, but she wasn't ever getting anywhere. She just had to run in place. And I said, why are you doing that? And why are you doing that? She says, if you don't, you'll fall behind. So it's called the Red Queen hypothesis. Okay. Organs, sexual organs, primary one, gonads. Everybody's got two of them, 2 testes or 2 ovaries. All right. Then there are secondary sexual organs, ducts and glands, and external genitalia. And we are have something called secondary sexual characteristics. We are a sexually dimorphic species. Sexual dimorphism is I can just look at somebody, an adult anyway, look at an adult, and you can tell right away what gender they are. And you don't have to see their genitals to figure that out. So what things am I talking about? Well, a deeper voice and these things show up at puberty under the influence of sex hormones. We don't really use sex hormones, have sex hormones when we're before puberty. So under the influence of the sex hormones, estrogen, one of the estrogens or one of the androgens, we develop secondary sexual characteristics. So you get a deeper voice for males, a more prominent laryngeal protuberance, hair patterns, I have to shave, females don't have to shave, body shape, and subcutaneous fat distribution. And of course, the most obvious ones is not breasts. I got breasts. With breasts, larger breasts. Females have larger breasts than males do, right? And that's a secondary sexual characteristic. Right. Okay. Back to gender now. Types of gender, now I have on this slide types of gender. I don't mean like male and female. Those are genders. The types of gender are really three: genetic gender. So you can have a genetic gender. That is, do you have two X chromosomes, or do you have an X and a Y? That's genetic gender. And then there's phenotypic gender. A phenotype means how you look on the outside. Do you look like a male? You have male extra genitals. And if you're an adult, you have male secondary sexual characteristics, or female genitals, or female secondary characteristics. So how you look on the outside? And sometimes as we look at what could go wrong, there's a disconnect there. You can have a disconnect between genetic gender and phenotypic gender. And then also psychological gender. Do you feel like the gender that you are? Or do you feel like some cosmic mistake has been made and you really should have been the other gender and you relate more to the other gender? And this is psychological. And that could be a disconnect there too between your genetic and phenotypic gender and your psychological gender. And now you can actually do something about it. You can legally change your gender. So let's look at gender determination. And I'm going to talk about this in the beginning of the chapter, even though it talks about it in the book, it always talks about it at the end. But gender is something to be right up front with in the beginning of a chapter on sex, I think. So you talk about how you make a male, how you make a female. Gender determination. Now, as I mentioned before, humans have genetic gender determination. Your genetic gender is determined by what set of sex chromosomes you have. We have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes. And females have, females have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes because they have two X's. Males only have 22 sets of homologous chromosomes because the X and Y are not homologous. Remember what homologous means? Homologous means the same genes are on homologous chromosomes, the same gene loci. Could be different alleles, so it could be heterozygous at that locus, but it's the same genes. That's, as I said, genetic gender. Now, well, this is something interesting before we get into gender development. What does it really mean that you are genetically different from somebody else? What does that mean, really? Does it mean you have different chromosomes than other people? No. Everybody's got exactly the same set of chromosomes. With the one exception of males have a Y. Females don't have a Y. That's the only exception. So everybody's got the same chromosomes. How about genes? Maybe you and I have different genes. No, that's not the case either. There is a whole set of about, it's thought to be something like around 30-something thousand genes that are needed first to make and then to maintain a human being. And everybody's got exactly the same ones. With the exception of males. They have a few that females don't have because they're on a Y chromosome. That's what's called a sex-linked locus, when it's on a sex chromosome. Everybody's got the ones on the X, because everybody's got at least one X. But only males have the ones on the Y. And most of the ones on the Y are, it's a very small chromosome. It's actually disappearing in geologic time. And most of those genes are not important, except for one called SRY. It codes for a protein called male determining factor. And that's kind of an important one. I'm going to talk about that one in just a moment. So, what makes you different genetically from me is not your chromosomes, not your genes, but your set of alleles at those 30 or something thousand loci. You know, an allele, alleles are genes that do the same thing, but slightly different. So it gives you a different phenotype. For example, there's a gene that codes for eye color. We could have one allele combination that gives you blue eyes. So everybody's got the loci, the genes for eye color. Right? What is your set of alleles at that locus, those two loci, on homologous chromosomes? Do those two loci give you blue eyes, or brown eyes, or green eyes, hazel eyes, whatever? You see? So what makes each of us genetically different is a set of alleles that we have. And because we have different parents, we give them different sets. And every single person alive has a unique set of alleles, except for identical twins. And actually every person who has ever lived has had a unique genetic allele combination. Every person that will live in the future will have an absolute unique set of alleles. That's how much variability there is in sexual reproduction. All right. Okay, let's look at gender determination. Phenotypic gender. How do you turn this, this zygote into a male baby or a female baby? So prior to 6 weeks development, you don't have a gender. Embryos don't have a gender. What they have is it's these genital folds that will become either a penis and a scrotum, or labia and a vagina and a clitoris. And this is, they talk about this, as I mentioned, on page 142, 143, in the very back of that chapter. I think it should be put up front, so that's what I'm talking about now. You also have two gonads prior to 6 weeks. They're not ovaries, they're not testes. They haven't been up to mind what they're going to be. Same thing with the genital folds. This is what's known as homologous tissue. That is, they can go either way, male or female, depending upon the situation. But then you also have two sets of ducts that are not homologous. They're purely female or male, and everybody has both of them. The female ones are called the Mullerian duct systems with an umlaut U, and the male duct system is called the Wolffian ducts. Now, usually, you know, this is in the, is it in the book? Yeah, it's in the book on page 10, 1141, but they use different names for them. They use pentameronephric ducts for female and mesonephric ducts for male, but I think it's better to use the eponymous names. So the female Mullerian and the male Wolffian. I'm going to put a document in D2L that and a description of what's going on here for you. All right. because it doesn't really talk about it that much in the book. Well, it does talk about it, but it also doesn't talk about much about what can go wrong and everything else. Okay. So, what happens at 6 weeks? We have what's called default gender. If a switch doesn't get turned on, you will have a female baby. The ovaries, the gonads will turn into ovaries. The genital folds will become female external genitals. The Mullerian duct system will become what I call the sexual plumbing, which is the top part of the vagina, the cervix, uterus, and the fallopian tubes. The Wolffian duct system has got a little time bomb in it. If no switch goes on, off, that tissue gets destroyed by itself. It's called apoptosis. That's destroyed. And then you have a complete normal little baby girl. Okay. Effects of expression of SRY. What if you got a Y chromosome? Then you have the SRY gene. It codes for a protein called male determining factor. And when it's expressed, it turns the fetal gonads into testes. And so what do testes do? What do testes do is they secrete testosterone. Testosterone goes out throughout the fetus's body, converts the genitals into male genitals. It turns the fuse off in the bottom that's in the Wolffian ducts, so they make the ejaculatory duct, the vas deferens, the epididymis, the male sexual plumbing. And also, what the testosterone does makes a male brain. Takes testosterone receptors in the brain of male makes a brain. This may not be surprising to you. Male and female brains work differently. We spoke about this last semester. They work different. And testosterone will make a male brain. Well, what about the Mullerian duct system for the female sexual plumbing? It doesn't have a time bomb in it, but another hormone that the testes make is called anti-Mullerian factor, which will cause the destruction of the Mullerian ducts, apoptosis of the Mullerian ducts, and they're gone. Right? And then the testosterone is turned off, and you don't see it again until puberty. But now we have a completely normal little baby boy that's going to be born. Okay. What can go wrong? There's a couple, and this is discussed a little bit on page 1142, but not too much. Something called androgen insensitivity syndrome. Actually, there's going to be a couple of ways that this could happen. But the most common way is called androgen insensitivity syndrome. And here's what happens. The SRY gene goes off, and you make testes. Testes make testosterone, but the testosterone doesn't do anything. Why? Because of a defective testosterone receptor. That's coded for by a completely separate gene on a different chromosome that makes the receptor for testosterone. Remember, steroid hormones bind to internal receptors in order to do their job. So this receptor is this wrong shape and the testosterone won't bind, so the testosterone does nothing. So it doesn't save the Wolffian ducts, and it doesn't turn the genital folds into male genitals. They remain female. The brain remains female. The Wolffian ducts are destroyed. And what is also destroyed is the Mullerian duct system. It's because the testes make anti-Mullerian factor, and it works. Its receptor is perfectly okay. So this person doesn't have any sexual plumbing. They have a female genitals, a female brain, and two little testes, and they're born looking like a complete normal little baby girls, until about 12 years later, when they don't menstruate. And you usually, through laparoscopic surgery, look in there and determine, wow, this is this person has testes, not ovaries. And they have a blind-ended vagina, no cervix. And these people, they go through lives as females. They get married, and they go through lives as female because they really are female. In all intents and purposes, they're female. Okay. Sometimes they're called XY females. Okay. What about the reverse? XX males. What we have so here's another disconnect between genetic gender and phenotypic gender. This can happen too, but it happens in a different way. Okay, you have two X's, no SRY, ovaries are produced. But unfortunately, this is also called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Because the adrenal glands gets a little tumor or something in the adrenal glands, and the adrenal gland starts making androgens, starts making testosterone. Because remember, that's the adrenal gland, the adrenal cortex also makes male and female hormones, and it just at the wrong time. So what it does, it turns these folds, genital folds, into male genitals. It turns off the bomb in the Wolffian ducts. So Wolffian ducts stay present, turn into male sexual plumbing. There's no anti-malarian factor that destroyed the malaria, and so they stay there. So this person has both sets of sexual plumbing. I don't know how they all fit together, but has both sets. It also has a male brain, because the testosterone affects the developing brain. And what's born, the infant that's born looks like a perfectly normal little baby boy, except for one thing, empty scrotum. Because they don't have testes to put in the scrotum. That's usually one of the last things that happen when a little baby boy is born, is the testes descend into the scrotum. Sometimes they don't descend until after birth, and that's called cryptorchism. Sometimes they have to be surgically brought down. But of course, with the physician put a little laparoscopy in there and look around and realize, well, wait a minute, the reason the scrotum is empty is because there's a couple ovaries in here. And what they usually do in these cases is take the tissue, the male tissue, and make female genitals out of them. And they go through life as females, because they really are females also. But they're going to be a little different because they're going to act like a male, because they got a male brain. And whether they can have children or not, I'm not sure. Of course, the other one, with androgen insensitivity syndrome, of course you can't have children. I'm not sure whether the XX male, they can have children or not, I'm not sure. Okay, so that's, now, so these are kind of bizarre. The most bizarre of all is called gravidosis. That's a Spanish word for it. It's also, it's actually called alpha-5 reductase deficiency. And this is truly el bizarro, really strange. And it's only happened in a couple places in the Dominican Republic when these individuals are accepted. And I think what's the name of that country? Near Indonesia. Anyway, where they're not accepted. Anyway, this is what happens. I left out something when I talked about, I first talked about testosterone turning genital folds into male genitals. And before the testosterone can do that, it has to be converted to what's called dihydrotestosterone by a hormone called 5-alpha reductase. Well, some individuals were born in the Dominican Republic with a defective enzyme. Alpha reductase does not work. So this little fetus's genitals are not made into the male; they stay female. But everything else turns male because you don't need dihydro to do the other things that testosterone does, and you have anti-malarian factor too. So everything's fine except female genitals. So here, so at least individuals born looking like perfectly normal baby girls, but it's an interesting thing that at puberty, you don't need dihydrotestosterone to make male genitals. Testosterone itself works. Why? I don't know, but that's the way it is. So at puberty, when they start making testosterone again, they start to grow male genitals. And this is where the Spanish name comes from. Reproduction means penis at 12. And that's an age. And they grow male genitals. And their testes descend into scrotum, and they look like males. Like I said, really bizarre. And they're just like regular males, except for one thing. Their penis does not enclose their urethra like a normal male's. So there remains a hole between their legs where the orifice of the urethra is, an opening, and they sit down to urinate just like females do. They can have sexual intercourse, but they can't inseminate a woman in a normal way because the semen is going to come out between their legs too. So they have to use artificial insemination in order to make babies. And that's the only difference between normal males and males with a 5-alpha reductase fishes. Okay. And I'm going to write all this down also because this is definitely not in the book. The set of gonads, as I mentioned, after 6 weeks, testes finally descend. And then to don't descend, it's called cryptorchism. For some reason, testes are called orchids. I think that's the Latin name for them. Ovaries also descend somewhat also. And sexual maturation. During puberty, under the influence of GnRH from the hypothalamus, they enter a pituitary which secrete FSH and LH, follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And they will turn on meiosis in the gonads, you start making gametes, and you start getting secondary sexual characteristics. These two hormones, if you remember from last semester, they're named for what they do in females, but they do exactly the same thing in both genders, and they are the same thing in both genders. Sexual maturation, production of gametes, gender differences in both genders make, there are differences in meiosis between males and females. We're going to get into those specific differences. One is how many gametes are made, like in a month. Females, 1. Sometimes more than 1. You can get twins and triplets and so on, but usually just 1. How many sperm are made by males in a month? Well, 100 million per day. So what is that, 30 million per month? I mean, 300 million per month. It's 3 billion per month. I mean, gazillions of sperm, let's put it that way. Okay, then we're going to get into anatomy, male female anatomy with the next video. So I'm going to kill this video right now, and see you on the flip side on reproduction 2.